Hello, I'm David Debato, and this is the live version of the No Delusion Zone on Saturday, April 25th, 2026. I'm going to focus today on one of my pet peeves, and the war in Iran has totally ripped the scar off of that pet peeve. And I'm going to talk about it today. It's pretty much going to be a sole focus for today's live stream, and that has to do with our defense industry. It has to do with our research and, well, our development and production of weapons, weapon systems, ammunition, and so forth for our military. Because America's military has a proclivity in fighting the last war and not the current one, and certainly not future wars. Sure, they've got whole departments, whole sections whose job it is to look at future conflicts, to try to game out what might happen, and to recommend appropriate weapons systems and ammunitions and training and so forth. It's a farce. It is just a farce. Why? Well, there's many reasons, but in this short video, let me just say that one of the main reasons is our out of control defense industry. They are only in, let me just say, first of all, we only have a very few defense contractors anymore. Like many other industries in America, they've all been swallowed up and bought by a few mega corporations, mega defense contractors. So we only have a very few to go to. And they and their lobbyists have a stranglehold on the United States government, on Congress. And it's both sides. I am not going to say it's all Republicans or all Democrats. It's both. And yes, many of them do pocket money from the lobbyists, from the defense industry. It's obscene, and yes, it's illegal, but it's been going on for a very long time, and it's worse now than ever. These lobbyists of the defense industries pretty much call the shots. They say what they are interested in terms of weapons systems. And believe me, they're only interested in weapons systems that cost many billions of dollars. That's why we has, as of yet in 2026, despite what's going on in Ukraine and now in Iran and the Middle East, we've had little to no interest in drones, in relatively cheap weapons systems. Oh, no. We want to develop multi-billion-dollar fighters, bombers, naval vessels, armored vehicles of all kinds that cost, like I said, in the many billions of dollars. And worse, take years from development, from concept to development to production. Years, by which time they are almost all over budget for sure, but obsolete by that time. I did a podcast a while back about, as an analogy to this, how during the height of World War II, the American defense industry was pumping out dozens of aircraft, naval vessels, armored vehicles, jeeps, you name it. And I'm not talking about just machine guns and pistols. No, I'm talking about B-17s, B-24s, eventually B-29s, talking about Sherman tanks. I'm talking about LSTs, destroyers, you name it. And yes, I said dozens every day. Granted, the weapon systems back then were far less sophisticated. It's irrelevant. We have the ability to make sophisticated, complex weapons systems today at a far greater rate and far cheaper than our defense industry would have you believe. But it's corporate greed. As with most everything else in the United States today, corporate greed is killing us. It is just killing us. And the defense industry is arguably the worst offender. As I said, they have no interest in developing drones. They are now being forced to do that, but they really don't want to. They're being pulled kicking and screaming to do that. So we have a situation where a drone, sometimes off the shelf, costing maybe tens of thousands of dollars, is intercepted with a missile or some other, or a jet for that cost billions of dollars, or at the very least, with say a Patriot missile, which I think cost $4 million a piece. That is what we are using to protect our military bases, our ships, our allies, and anything else that, or our vessels, our naval vessels, and anything else that we deem necessary to protect. Millions of dollars per shot, sometimes billions. The weapon systems of those multi-million-dollar munitions, precision-guided anti-aircraft munitions, cost billions of dollars to knock down a drone that in some cases costs $20,000. That's insane. And as I said, the reason for that is because in America, and yes, in other countries it's similar, but in America it's the worst. The defense industry has a stranglehold on our government, on our Congress. And you would think they would learn what's happening for years, going on 5 years in Ukraine, and what's been going on now in Iran. Not really. I've got a bunch of stuff here. I'm going to just throw up some brief overlays here of what I'm talking about. For example, the Air Force, Navy, and Marines already are jockeying for position on 6th generation fighter of the future. And this is a photo of that, the 6th generation, I believe, fighter of the future. How much is that going to cost? Oh, I'm not sure. Probably $1 billion. It's called, by the way, it's called the F-47. That is a rendering of an F-47. And this is what the Air National Guard wants. They're calling on leaders in Congress to fund hundreds of new fighter jets. Where is that story? They want the Air National Guard, that is 72 new fighter jets for 2027. Doesn't say anything about drones, about whether or not they want some drones or anti-drone platforms, either anti-drone drones themselves, anti-drone electronics, jamming, or anything else. Nope, they want 72 new fighter jets in 2027. I've already showed you the this article or blurb about the Air Force, what they're looking to do. They love these very, very expensive jets, bombers, as opposed to drones and anti-drone warfare. Let's move on to just one other thing that's even more expensive and more ridiculous, and that is Donald Trump and the Trump-class battleship. Donald Trump has a fetish for battleships. He's lost, his brain is lost in World War II. It never moved past that. He still thinks we're in the era of Victory at Sea, a very popular TV series here in the States during the 1950s and 60s that showcased the war in the Atlantic, and I think also the Pacific, but the naval war, the sea war during World War II. He never got over that. He thinks we should still be building a lot of battleships. And let me see what he said about that. Oh, yeah, the Navy plans to bring back heavily armed class of warships known as the battleships, and it will arm them with the most modern weaponry, including nuclear missiles, President Donald Trump announced Monday. The president promised the new class of ship would be 100 times more powerful than the Iowa-class battleships that fought during World War II and were last used by the Navy in the 1990s, for good reason. Trump promised the new ships would be outfitted with an array of technology still under development, including hypersonic weapons, electric rail guns, and high-powered lasers. And they will be capable of firing nuclear-armed cruise missiles, he said. Battleships are the largest, sturdiest, and most heavily armed vessel built specifically for naval combat, Trump said Monday from his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida. Each one of these will be the largest battleship in the history of our country, the largest battleships in the history the world was ever built. What a bunch of BS. Unfortunately, all of the technology that he's talking about that will be on this Trump-class battleship is still in development. and is questionable when or if any or all of those technologies will be available. And he wants these battleships to roll out and be seaworthy by next year, 2027. He's insane. That's not going to happen. What is this other one? This is just about the Air Force again. But so here we've got competing interest here between the Air Force and the Marine Corps for obscenely expensive aircraft instead of drone warfare or anti-drone warfare. And we've got the Navy. This is all again under Donald Trump, trying to develop World War II vessels, battleships, which most countries don't have for a reason. We haven't used it, as that article said, since 1999 because they're obsolete. Folks, it's just a matter of time before a drone or a ballistic missile, especially a hypersonic ballistic missile, or a mine, or these fast attack boats in Iran attack and sink one of our naval vessels in theater. That could be a battleship, but it could also be a cruiser. It could also be a destroyer. It could also be any number of the vessels that are in the theater of operations in the Persian Gulf or the Gulf of Oman. It's just a matter of time before one of those is sunk, and that's going to be a catastrophe. And if Trump goes through with building battleships and more big obsolete naval vessels instead of spending the money to research, develop, and produce drones of all kinds. When I say drones, I don't just mean in the air. I mean on land and in the sea. And I think my next live stream is going to be about what Ukraine is doing with their drones in the air, land, and sea. If we, the United States, don't put our money, which we have a lot of still, into development and production of drones and anti-drone technology, we're in for a world of hurt. We're going to lose the war in Iran if we already haven't, and we are going to lose one or more capital ships. Those are the big ships, like a carrier, to drone warfare or mines or something else that will take out our obsolete technology. That's it for today. I thank you for indulging me. As I also always say, please become a subscriber here on the No Delusion Zone here on YouTube, or if you're watching it on my Substack, which is protectingtherepublic.com, become a subscriber there. Also, I ask you to go to Buy Me a Coffee and buy me a coffee. Or if you would like to do even something further, use your phone on this QR code, your Apple or your Android. Just put it on the code and you can buy me a coffee, or you can become a monthly supporter. 7-day free trial, $5 a month after that, or at the gold level, $20 a month. Again, this is at buymeacoffee.com/No Delusion Zone. Folks, thank you very much for this. I'm going to be doing one of these every day, usually during the week at least. Have my partner here and friend Jonathan Fink, where we do a daily live stream called The Dictators. We may or may not do that Monday, but again, it's usually here Monday through Friday. So I'll be doing another one of these tomorrow. I think I might focus on the Ukrainian drone development, as I discussed, because that's something that America is very, very, very far behind. Ukraine is leading the world in this as well as other technologies. So stay tuned. Come back here tomorrow, which is about 10 a.m. Eastern time, to view that new live stream about the Ukrainian drones. And as I always tell folks, until the next time, you take care, stay safe, and stay